Who is this team and what have they done with the 24-25 Tar Heels? Wow.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. Welcome into this live postcast reaction show edition of the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks so much for joining us for your first listener or watch coming up right after the game. And oh, what a game it was. Special shout out to the Locked On Tar Heels insiders, to our everydayers, and of course the great Locked On Tar Heels Discord members as well. Coming up on the show today, what we're going to do is unpack everything that just happened. We'll get to a bunch of odds and ends. And then later on tonight, Coach Pat Kilby and I are going to record Thursday's episode. We'll have a bunch of other takeaways from this game, what it means long-term and all that kind of stuff. So in case you were, sleeping under a rock and missed this game, Carolina just absolutely dominated. And I mean dominated NC State, in particular the first half. Final score of this game, 97-73. Carolina moves to 16-11 on the season, 9-6 in ACC play. That's 2 straight wins. They move from 47th up to 43rd at Ken Palm. So you just want to start moving back in the right direction. Big reason why you got to get those big victories. Can't let NC State get that margin back down. And so it was important for Carolina to keep a good margin there, and they did. We always think, is this going to be a celebration or a therapy session? This is a massive celebration for Carolina, not only because of getting another win, of stringing 2 together, but also because it's NC State and because it's like, how often have we seen it this year? You get this lead and it's like, all right, you going to hold this, or when's it going to get down to the other team going to get it down to 2, right? So big time celebration for us as we get going with this thing. We've been talking about these 6 games ahead of the Duke game. Got to get all of them to put yourself in a position to make the tournament. Well, so far, 2 down, 4 to go. Now, here's what we'll do. We'll talk about the game, some specifics of the game, big picture, small picture details, have a break or two. We'll get to your comments. So if you've got questions about this game or maybe some observations or anything like that, I'd love it. If you are at this game, I would love to know your feelings on the atmosphere of it with the nature of the free admission and all that. Okay, let's dive in. You may or may not have caught it. I don't know if you did. Carolina never trailed in this game. It was tied at the very beginning. It was tied at 6-6, and then Carolina literally never trailed. And why that's important is, Carolina has had these struggles earlier in the season where they would get down, make a big comeback, or other times this year where they've gotten out to double-digit first-half leads, let the other team come back, maybe get a first-half lead, maybe get a second-half lead, and then it's been nip and tuck down the stretch. 2 straight games at Syracuse and this one against NC State where Carolina has led the game wire to wire. They've only done that 4 times in total this season, and 2 of them are the last 2 games. Are these guys starting to figure something out? Maybe. And that's really important for what happened. So from that moment that the score was tied 6-6, Carolina went on a 10-0 initial run to make it 16-6 and a 31-9 extended run to make this thing 37-15. And then they just never looked back. I mean, that was an absolute dominating performance from Carolina. Way to go. Let's talk about the atmosphere of the Smith Center. I think you probably are all very aware of this, but just to make sure, there are snowy conditions going on in North Carolina, in Chapel Hill specifically. There was a lot of speculation of whether this game would actually even be played. Reports came out earlier on Wednesday that NC State was actually over in Chapel Hill already. They'd gone through shoot around. They were ready to go. We just needed to get the officials in. And then throughout the afternoon, from some of the stuff that social media from Carolina was suggesting, like, hey, there's not going to be the express buses running, but you can walk to the game, things like that. It's like they're going to play this game. And then about an hour and a half or 2 before tip-off, Carolina says, hey, look, if you have to drive in, don't come. stay home, watch this thing. If you're within walking distance, free admission, come on in. Doors open at 5:30. And so this atmosphere was great. I mean, it popped on camera. It's students all the way around. It's so, so, so good. Which, by the way, we've been talking about a new arena lately. Let's make sure we get this kind of seating where students have better access to better seats to make the atmosphere even better. Like, you could have that more often. Let's figure that out. Also, love to see Coach Forbes at the game supporting the Tar Heels. That was great. He was sitting right there at the scorers table. Scott Forbes, obviously, the head coach of the Diamond Heels. So really good stuff there. Now, Carolina had great energy early in this game. It was very much a defense into offense situation. Carolina has started utilizing that pressure a little more. We saw immediately after the first free throws, a 1-2-1-1 press. Carolina gets a steal, scores, goes right back into it, gets another steal. And then they kept utilizing that, and that turned into points, man. That energy and intensity from the Tar Heels is what they got to have, because they've got to play differently to win. Like, that's the kind of energy that Coach Davis has been begging for from this team. And boy, did they bring it in a big way. I loved it. Jay Billis said at one point, NC State is getting outworked and out-hustled. A lot of times this year, that's been said about the Tar Heels. They're getting outworked and out-hustled right now, right? And we've been so disappointed in that. But they were clearly the aggressors in this game, and it was a beautiful thing to see. I don't know about you, but I loved it. However, Carolina gets this 10-point lead at 16-6, and because of being the PTSD and being triggered from what's happened all throughout this season, you were right there with me, right? Like, all right, when's NC State going to make a run? When are they going to make this run? But instead, the craziest thing happened. Carolina just kept pushing the lead out further and further and further. I was like, okay. Like, from that point when it was 16-6, we can even look in real time. Let's do that. What was the lowest NC State got the lead down to in the first half? I tracked it in the second half. All right, Carolina gets out to a 16-6 lead. And wow, from that moment, it never dropped. Oh no, I've got some filters on to where I'm not seeing everything that happened. Okay, there we go. Now we got it. 16-6. NC State hit a couple free throws to get it down to 8. And then after that, Carolina got a jumper from Seth Trimble. And from that moment on, with 13:23 left in the game, Carolina led by double digits the entire rest of the game. The lead was 28 at halftime. Carolina gets the first bucket of the second half from Van Allen Lubin. That put the lead at 30. And obviously NC State cut that back down. But literally never did the Wolfpack get it under 20. Carolina led by at least 20 the entire second half. State got it down to 20 a couple times, but never less than. You guys, that is exactly what we're looking for from this team. And I cannot tell you how good that is to see them doing this at the most critical time now of the season as we're coming down to it. And as I said, so much of this was due to the defense. Let's remember that in the first matchup, the one in Raleigh, Carolina held NC State to just 20 points in the first half, very low shooting, and then NC State shot 60% in the second half. Let's go and see how NC State did. In the first half of this game, we let them get to 26. How dare we? No, I'm just kidding. That is great. They were 10 of 28 from the field, 2 of 10 from 3, which mirrors what Carolina did in the first game. And so Carolina was able to hold them very nicely in check. Now, in the second half, it was kind of a similar story to the game in Raleigh, where they shot 54.8% in the second half. But it's kind of a different scenario, because this time, instead of only being up 6 at the half, Carolina was up 28 at the half, and that's a whole different ball game, right? That's true. Now, obviously, you don't want to just coast by and float in the second half, but let's recognize that that's very difficult to keep that same level of momentum that you had that entire time. So really, really, really good stuff there. One other thing I want to say before we take our first break and then get into some of the personnel with Jae'lyn Withers, Ian, Seth, all of that. Carolina. It's funny. We had literally talked about this week Should the Tar Heels look at bringing Elliot Cadeau off the bench so that they can get some more height, fewer turnovers, fewer fouls in the first half, all of those kind of things? And my suggestion was something in the vein of RJ Davis, Ian Jackson, Drake Powell, Jae'lyn Withers, and Van Allen Lubin. So similar to what they've been doing lately, but take Elliot out and bring in Drake at the 3. Or like RJ, Seth, Ian, and the guy, just something like that. Some combination of those 6. Well, Carolina did make another change to the starting lineup, but it was not the one I expected. It was very similar to that, just slightly adjusted. Elliot and RJ both still in. So my suggestion had been to bring Elliot off the bench, kept him in. Totally understand that. Like, no problems with that at all. You need Elliot Cadeau to be in there. It's just because of his ineffectiveness and inefficiency in terms of turnovers and fouls lately. That was why I said that. So it's Elliot, it's RJ, Drake Powell at the 3, his more natural position, and then the same 2 in the front court that we've seen from the last 2 games, Jae'lyn Withers and Van Allen Lubin. So I liked the size of this in a big way, right? Having at the 3, you got 6'6", 6'7" with Drake, and then 6'9" and 6'8" with Jay Witt and Van Allen Lubin. I was worried, though, about the offense. Where's it going to come from? Obviously, RJ. If Jae'lyn Withers could continue to do what he's been doing or did at Syracuse, if Drake will be assertive, if Van Allen will be assertive, Elliott, those kind of things, but you don't have Ian in there, right? And so it's like, man, I feel like you need that scoring. So I'm curious to talk more about that. We will do so. I want to save the rest of that conversation, though, because Pat Kilby and I are going to record Thursday's show together, and he's already told me he's got thoughts about it. So I want to save the rest for that. But I just wanted to point out, this is the 7th different starting lineup combo that the Tar Heels have used this season, which is very interesting to me. And I wonder, like, is Coach Davis going to continue to tinker? Does he think, is it a kind of thing of like, holy cow, look what happened here, let's keep riding with it? Or I don't know. We will wait and see, though. But very much what we are seeing, regardless of who starts, it's settling into this 8-man rotation that includes in the backcourt, Elliot Cadeau, RJ Davis, Seth Trimble, Ian Jackson, and like Drake on the wings. So that would be 5. And then in the front court, the Jaelyns and Van Allen Lubin. It's like those 8. And then obviously Cade Tyson. Cade Tyson got in this game. We'll talk about him coming up here in just a minute. But it's really going to be those 8 that Hubert Davis relies on. So I do want to go talk about this next. How did Jae'lyn Withers and Ian Jackson follow up their great games at Syracuse from Saturday? Did Carolina get any better at the free throw line in this game? Because they've been bad lately. And what about that 3-point shooting? Because it was essentially tied for season's best in terms, not essentially, it was tied for season's best in terms of makes on Saturday. How'd the Tar Heels follow that up? All that and more coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about TurboTax. Now, Taxes is easily uploading your forms to a TurboTax expert who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy on your return. And while they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates on their progress. And you get the most money back guaranteed, all while you just go about your day. So there's no stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, we want to start talking about some of the personnel now, and as we do so, for those of you watching in real time, I'm going to pull up the box score from this game so you can follow along with that. If you're listening back later, you can obviously pull that up on my social media. I always put the box scores out, things like that. Okay, I want to follow up because Jae'lyn Withers had his highest scoring game as a Tar Heel Saturday at Syracuse. So the big question for this one is, all right, how are we going to follow that up? Is it going to be back to like a kind of typical Jae'lyn Withers where there's like some good, some bad, whatever, or what's going to happen there? Well, followed it up quite nicely. And here's what I liked. It was just solid. It didn't have to be some big explosion, just doing the right things from Jae'lyn Withers, because that's what Carolina needs from him. And it was nice. His first shot of the game was a corner 3 opposite the NC State bench. Nice find from RJ. He missed it. Yeah, tough. I think if I remember correctly, literally the next possession, he's out on the wing, end of shot clock situation, takes his time, takes a three, bottoms. Got it. Had another three later in this game. Did have a fourth attempt that I didn't think he should have taken. It was contested and not necessary. It was early in the shot clock. So that's the one I would quibble with. The other three, it's great. Jae'Wit finishes 2 of 4 from 3, and he's been shooting really well. I need to get all the totals on that together, and I'll have that ready for Thursday's show with Coach Pack. But only had one other shot attempt in this game, made it, was 3 of 5 from the field, 8 points. Again, it doesn't have to be crazy. That efficiency with 8 points, we will take that. 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover, and a steal in 20 minutes played. Great stuff there. Wow, I'm just noticing that in real time. Nobody played more than 30 minutes in this game. RJ played 30. Everybody else was in the 20s or under. Wow. Much needed down the home stretch of the season. So really nice from Jae'lyn Withers there. What about Ian Jackson? Because we were also watching, all right, Captain Jack, back up to 20 points on Saturday. How do you follow that up? Like, was that a one-off and we shouldn't expect it anymore? Or are you going to get back? Well, same kind of thing we just talked about with Jae'Wit. Ian had a very solid game. Had 2 turnovers, but they were just like right at the end of the game when it's like walk on, like James Brown. I say walk on. James Brown had come in at that point. Kate Tyson was back in, kind of in mop up duty. And so it's like, whatever, explain those away. But outside of those 2 turnovers, Ian Jackson, 12 points on 4 of 6 shooting, a perfect 2 of 2 from 3. That's critical. And I mean, one of those was this beautiful step. I mean, a good night. 2 of 2 at the free throw line. Remember, he struggled Saturday at Syracuse, 2 of 6, 2 rebounds, an assist, those 2 turnovers in 21 minutes, plus 18 was the second highest. The third highest plus minus for Carolina in this game. Seth Trimble was the highest. We'll talk about him in a second. So I love it for Ian. Wasn't 20 points, but he didn't need it because Carolina had this great balance across the board. And here's what I mean. RJ led the way with 21 points. You had 3 others in double digits. Seth with 15, Van Allen with 13. We'll talk about him in a second. And Ian with 12. And then you had 1, 2, 3, 4 others with 6 or more points. Jay Wash and Cade each had 6, 8 each for Jae'Wit and Elliot. Really, really good stuff for Carolina. And so I think those are great follow-ups from both Ian and from Jae'lyn Withers. Now, the next person I wanted to talk about is Seth Trimble. Seth came off the bench in this game. He has been starting. And he comes in and immediately makes an impact in this game. It was out of the under 16 timeout. And actually, I think it was that first bucket off the press. RJ winds up the ball off the steal, goes to the rim, misses over the top, but Seth is on the other side waiting. Literally his first touch of the game, just seconds after he's checked in for the first time, one-handed tip back. And I mean, Seth was all over the place in this game. Great activity, great hustle. Once again, led Carolina in rebounding. I'm telling you, man, it's going to happen. This dude is going to lead Carolina in rebounding on the season. Wasn't a double-double, but he had 15 points on 6 of 9 shooting. Just 0 of 1 from 3, was 3 of 4 from the free throw line, 7 rebounds, no assists in this game, interestingly, just 1 turnover, and only 1 steal. That's interesting. I feel like he had more steals than that. Maybe, look, they get these miscredited all the time, but I can visually see him jumping up to catch one of them. I really feel like Seth is getting back, fully trusting that athleticism that he can rely on and play so well. And I just thought what he added to this game for the Tar Heels was wildly critical. And as I said, had the highest plus minus on the entire team for this game. Speaking of the free throw line, Carolina had been struggling lately. In the last 3 games, Carolina was 28 of 49. That's 57.1%. And they'd not been getting to the line as much, essentially all throughout ACC play. But now, 2 straight games, they've been over 20. They took 23 attempts at Syracuse. And in this one, they were not only got to the line 24 times, but they made 19 of them. Beyond that, Carolina made their first 12 free throws in a row, 7 of 7 in the first half, and hit their first 5 of the second half, and hit in totality 16 of their first 17. These are the kind of things that give you this massive lead that they got. And it's great. Get to the free throw. I mean, they were attacking. That's what it's got to be, and that's what you got to have. Next thing I want to point out that Carolina did, they've not been a great three-point shooting team this season, hovering around 32% for most of the year. In the Syracuse game, they were tied for the most threes they've made all season, made 13 of them. I don't remember the total. I'm trying to pull it up really quick here in real time. Game log. Here we go. Almost there. Syracuse, Carolina was, I'm not looking at the right thing because that says, oh, there we go. 13 of 28. I was like, they did not make 19. 13 of 28. That's 46.4%. In this game, Carolina shot 8 of 20. That's 40%. Meaning in the last two games, 8 of 20 and 13 of 28. That means they've made 21 out of 48 in the last two games. Let's do some quick math here. 21 out of 48. 43.8% from three for Carolina in the last two games. For this team that's been 32% on the season. Obviously, it's just two games. It's just two data points in a long season. Is it a harbinger of things to come, of Carolina starting to figure it out? Obviously, RJ has been shooting a lot better lately, but he didn't necessarily in this game. RJ from three tonight was just 1 of 8. So you take RJ out, and it's the rest of the team that was 7 of 12. Holy smokes, that's great. I love it. Elliot Cadeau took a confident, in rhythm, no hesitation three. He had another one that missed, but same thing, man. It was confident, and I loved that. So Carolina, maybe finding something from three, and we will absolutely take that. But, just even back to the defense, NC State is a team that does not turn the ball over. In the first half alone, Carolina goaded them into 9 turnovers. There was just 1 in the second half by NC State, but at that point it didn't matter, and it was too late. For the game, Carolina had 21 second chance points. In the first game they played against NC State, just 6. You guys, that is winning basketball that Carolina is bringing into this thing. Now, here's what's funny. Just a couple other three more points, and then we will get to your questions and stuff over in the chat. The very next thing that I want to talk about is Van Allen Lubin. In the first half of this game, Carolina utilized, I'm trying to find first half, and that's giving me everybody. I don't know why. In the first half, there were 9 players that played because Cade ended up coming in. 8 of those 9 scored. Elliot Cadeau 7, RJ 13 in the first half, 2 for Drake, 6 for Jay Witt, 6 for Cade Tyson, 9 for Seth, 5 for Ian, and 6 for Jay Wash. Van Allen Lubin, goose egg. I mean, goose egg. And then this homie comes out in the second half, has a dunk to start it off, a really nice look from Elliot. And then he had this putback dunk that was one of the craziest. I mean, the way he hovered, and then it was like his hands just like hinged at his wrist all of a sudden, and it was explosive. And then he had a layup plus a free throw to score Carolina's first 7 points of this second half. He had a couple of RJ free throws, a Jay Witt layup, and then another Van Allen Lubin dunk. So he had 9 of Carolina's first 13 in the second half, had another tip dunk later in the second half. Man, that dude was feasting in the second half. And so I absolutely loved what he brought. Next thing I want to talk about, man, and this is tough, but we got to do it. We got to keep talking about it, you guys. Elliot Cadeau, 6 assists. Absolutely. That's great. But 4 turnovers. Again, 4 turnovers. That means now that for Elliot, he has 8 straight games with 3 or more turnovers and has done so 11 of the last 12 games. Now, look, I recognize he's got the ball in his hands a lot. Maybe not all of these are his fault, right? Like if it's a guy cutting, but there are multiple of them that are like, just throttle down a little bit, there was one where he was careening breakneck, tried to go up top to Jay Wash, and he was just too high for him, couldn't handle it. And then the other side of it is the first half fouls. Here we go again. Elliot commits a foul with 17:06 to go in the first half, then has another one, his second foul with 6:19 left in the first half, and it was kind of unnecessary. right? Like great defensive intensity, but you got to know time and place. Heels were up 22 at that point. It was an unnecessary foul. Thankfully, Carolina was able to extend the lead. But then Elliot commits his third foul with 17-19 left in the second half, and he's got to go back to the bench for a long time. A bit of an acting job from the NC State player, but still, Elliot had two hands on the ball handler. You're going to get whistled for that, man. And so it's just like, again, some very nice things from Elliot in this game. Got to the rim well, other things of that nature, but he's got to be smarter, man. For Carolina to reach their ceiling, there was so much good about tonight, and just a couple of things there. Also want to point out, Jalen Washington set some really good screens in important ways. He set the screen that gave Jay Witt his second three. He had set the screen that gave Elliot a really nice back cut with an assist from Jae'lyn Withers from the left wing down to the right side of the bucket. It was great. He had another screen out front with about 6:05 to go for RJ. RJ just follows him to actually 6:05 in the first half. RJ just followed him like a lineman paving the way for a running back for an easy I mean, J-Wash is doing really good with that, right? So it's not just box score looking. Watch at how those screens are setting Carolina up to do well. One last thing that I want to point out, and then again, we'll get to your questions and other stuff of that nature, is Carolina's bench in the last two games. They had 34 on Saturday, had 43 in this game, meaning Carolina has 77 points from their bench in these last two games. That's an average of 38.5 points per game in the last two, man. That's going to get it done. You're not just relying on the starters to do it, and you're bringing in the bench, and they are contributing in big ways, including Cade Tyson hitting from each corner confidently, man. That's the thing. How often has Cade taken these threes this year and they've been hesitant? They've looked, I'm not sure if I should do this. Each of these threes he hit from the corner were quick trigger, were the right shots to take, and they were confident. He looked like himself, like the version that we saw all the tape of him on from Belmont. And man, that three that Carolina got for him, that look Carolina got for him right heading into halftime, I thought it was going down too for a third one. But the fact that Carolina trusted him to draw up that play right before halftime was phenomenal, man. Way to go, Cade. Just good for you, man, for staying ready and doing those things. All right, guys, want to get over to the comments, questions that you all have. That's where we're headed next in just a second. Drew 1986 says, if we're going to criticize Jae'lyn Withers when he struggles, we also need to give him his props when he plays well. He's now put up 2 solid games. Obviously, we've already talked about it, but I just wanted to recognize this. Drew is right. Many in the Tar Heel sphere have criticized Jae'lyn Withers for his struggles. But let's say this. If this is the Jae'lyn Withers we're going to have down the stretch of this season, that adjusts, we just talked about if Elliot is going to continue to struggle, that adjusts Carolina's ceiling down. Jae'lyn Withers is pushing that ceiling up because of what he's doing here, man. And so really, really important stuff there. Mark Ellis, yes, I'm so glad you are pointing this out. RJ moves into third place all time. I think it's actually fourth. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. I thought it was fourth. I can even go back in my notes because I wrote it down. Stay with me here, everybody. Fourth all-time on the ACC scoring list. So, Mark, I think you might be one off there. Forgive me. But he passed Johnny Dawkins for fourth. And I believe, again, it's Wake's Dickie Hemrick that is in third with 25.87. RJ got up to 25.57 when he passed Johnny Dawkins. And I can't remember if he got any more after that. But is about 30 points away from moving into third on the all-time ACC scoring list. And at that point, he's only behind Tyler and JJ, right? Am I right? Are they 1 and 2? Tyler Hansbrough? No. Or is it Tim Duncan? Ah, man, my brain is failing me. Obviously, it's Tyler number 1. I just can't think of who number 2 is right now. But great stuff from RJ, which, by the way, how crafty is he with the basketball, man? Like, yes, we haven't even talked about the fact that he led Carolina in scoring, struggled from 3 in this game, but a perfect 8 of 8 from the free throw line, doing it again. Remember, 6 assists, 1 turnover on Saturday, 5 assists, 1 turnover here. So that's 11-2 assist to turnover ratio in the last 2 games. In totality, that'd be 5.5 to 1 if you take that average there. But RJ, how much? I need to find the other. I'll wait and we'll figure it out. But I need to know how many fouls RJ drew. I know it's going to be in the other like official NCAA box score, so I can have that ready for us for the Thursday show. But man, great stuff from RJ there. Really, really good on that. Okay, let's keep looking here and we'll see what else we got. Oh, this is a great point. We've talked a lot about body language this season and how it's not been good at times. We've seen some palms up. We've seen some other stuff. We've just seen some slumped shoulders, other things like that. But as Melinda Dolphin points out here, lots of players smiling and laughing, effort, just those little, you get the huddle together and just the laughter, those kind of things. Man, that's needed. I hope they can find that, especially like, I obviously we criticized Elliot just a little bit ago, just needs to be better with that assisted turnover ratio and the fouls. But you can see that he's really getting down on himself, man. And his teammates need to pick him up. One of his I think it was maybe the fourth turnover, just head in his hands. Obviously, he's so frustrated with himself, right? Like he knows the deal. And so he needs this team camaraderie. He needs this energy so they can pick each other up. And I hope that can come around, man, because I just want the best for him. And we'll see what's happening there. T-Man, our guy from the Locked On Tar Heels Discord. What's up, T-Man? Says, hey, Isaac, I know I asked you this in the Discord the other day. Let me take a sip of water here, y'all. My voice is struggling. I know I asked you this in the Discord the other day about Pitt, but I wanted to ask you about SMU. I know they are on the bubble. They are 40th in the net and become quad one if in the top 30. That's absolutely right. Will it help us? Absolutely, man. If SMU, who I believe is playing tonight, is that correct? We can even look that up in real time. If SMU could get to top 30, that is absolutely a quad one win. And Carolina desperately needs that quad one win because there are other teams that have made the NCAA tournament with as many losses as Carolina has, but never has there been a team so far in the early years of the quad system that has made the NCAA tournament with just one quad one win. All right, I'm looking in real time here. SMU killed Notre Dame on the road tonight. Notre Dame, obviously not a great team, but still winning on the road and doing so with a big margin is going to help their net ranking. So hopefully SMU takes a big jump here going forward. That's a 24-point win. We will live with that. The problem is, if I remember their schedule correctly, I'm not looking at it right now, but I think SMU still has to go out to California to play both of those schools. That's tough, obviously. So yes, to T-Man's point, we are all massive Mustangs fans right now. Come on, SMU, do us all a solid. Get yourself into the tournament. Get up. Here's the other problem, though. Man, this is a bundle here. Let me go another layer on this thing. SMU is also firmly on the bubble and right in the same territory as Carolina is. So we need a lot of other teams to fall off, right? I haven't looked around the rest of the bubble tonight, obviously, which, by the way, is a moment to remind you, I put up a bubble team cheering guide every day. It's funny. A lot of people were confused when I put it out on Wednesday morning because I put it out just for a general national audience, not necessarily even for us. So on today's, what I put it out is I say who the bubble team is and who other bubble teams should be cheering for. So on there, it says bubble team should be cheering for NC State. And everybody's like, what are we doing here, Isaac? We're cheering for the Tar Heels. Yes, obviously we're cheering for the Tar Heels. It's just about cheer for your team, but then cheer for these other teams as well, because you want to see the rest of the bubble lose. So it's good for us that SMU won in terms of maybe they could get back to quad one status. It's bad for us that SMU won in terms of the bubble, right? But I think ultimately that getting them maybe to a quad one is ultimately better. But like we want to see Arkansas lose tonight. It was they're at Auburn, so they should lose. It was great to see Oklahoma lose again last night. Man, they should be getting obliterated. All right, Auburn's up 33-27 at the half, so they need to keep that rolling. That's what we want to see. So yeah, SMU, very good for them to get going. This is a completely random comment, but it's from Ted Aldridge, who's in here all the time. What up, Ted? He says, does the intro music remind anyone else of We Are Family? We are family. Yeah. I got my, man, it's a party, man. We're going in on it tonight. Yes. There's some other song it reminds me of as well. I was disappointed. We had to change our theme music about a year ago. I loved our old theme music, but I've grown to like this one. I like the hits and how they bring in and bring out the show, right? Like right at the end when I go, peace, yeah, it's just fun. I like it. And so there is all of that. David Scott, I see your question in here about players hitting the portal next year. I want to wait on that. I love the question and I appreciate it. But I do want to hold off on that until we get a better idea of where this season is wrapping up, because I think that is going to play into it. And so we'll get in on that. Drew 1986 says, Isaac, your sweatshirt game is on point, bro. You're closing in on Belichick level. Does that mean I got to cut the sleeves off of this thing? I hope not. Yeah, I got this one for Christmas. It's on the Go Heels shop app right there on goheels.com. So if you want to find it, just go check it out. I'm getting a lot of crap from T-Man and the Nintendo Nerd in the chat because so we were looking up some things earlier today in the Locked On Tar Heels Discord with some stats. I had to go find some really quickly to answer a couple questions, and we were joking about that. I just always seem to have stats in my back pocket. I had to go do it in real time here during the show, so y'all got a little inside process into my head, but I appreciate the guys getting in on that. I tell you what, I know there's going to be some other questions in here. If there's other good and important stuff that we need to answer, I'll save that for Coach Pat Kilby and myself. I promise you I'll go back and look through it and find what else. But I know we're getting close up to 40-ish minutes here, and I know it's getting late. They're on the East Coast, 10:15. And, man, but we needed to party tonight. This is what we absolutely needed to have happen, is Carolina just blow the doors off this thing. If you watched today's show, you'll remember Carolina was favored by 9.5 in this game, and I said, I don't see it. I said Carolina will win, but I'm taking them by 8. Boy, was I wrong, and boy, am I elated to be so wrong, because I was going on what the smart money is, right? Like Carolina has not proven outside of Cal and SMU that they could blow out any team this season. And then we get that. Very, very well done, Tar Heels. I'm thankful for that. Now it means you keep stacking wins to make each successive game matter more and more and more. So now, yes, we celebrate this, but immediately the Tar Heels have to turn their attention to Virginia coming to the Dean Dome on Saturday. This is a Virginia team that has been playing better. They're still not very good, but they have been playing better. Carolina needs to take care of work at home to keep making these games mean something. So let's forecast ahead a little bit. Coach Pat Kilby and I on the Thursday show together. Coach Rob and I will be together on Friday, talking any big picture stuff and getting ready for that Virginia game. And what do you need to know about a Virginia team no longer coached by Tony Bennett? That's where we'll head. Heading into the weekend. Should be a lot of fun there. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining me here on this live reaction show. Great to be together. If you've not subscribed to Locked On Tar Heels on YouTube, do it right now. Hit that little subscribe button down at the bottom. Hit the bell notification so you know as soon as we go live. We're closing in on 10,000 YouTube subscribers, and you can be the next one. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders, man, that's a great way to go next level with the show. You get to text with me directly, get access free to all of those stats we're talking about, man. Anytime I drop a new stat chart or anything like that, it goes into the Locked On Tar Heels Insiders Google Drive, and you have free access to it. If you want to be part of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, where we have great conversation every day, that link is also in the show notes. You can be part of this community, and we'd love to have you. Y'all, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll be back again tomorrow with, myself and Coach Pat Kilby. But until then, peace.